hate? When people make stupid-ass TikToks that say stupid-ass shit. But my TikToks are way better than these people's TikToks, and I'm gonna prove it. Here's my hottest take. I think racism is kind of bad. And I know you guys are gonna hate me for this because, like, racism is kind of fun and cool and quirky. Well, I agree, but then also it's kind of mean to hate on people for their skin color. I know. I'm truly the wokest person to ever exist. Oh my god, guys. Have you heard about JESSICA.RANTZ 35523? I honestly can't believe that they actually said those things. No, I'm not going to clarify what I mean, nor am I actually going to show evidence for anything I'm saying, because I'm a slime ranter and we don't do that here. Oh my god, and have you heard of that problematic YouTuber Mushroom Girl? I can't believe they're still posting after they drew problematic art and had problematic opinions. Please don't check the rest of my TikTok account, which has 10 million rage bait videos about how ice is actually good.
Yeah, okay, so, TikTok Takedown Part 3. If you're confused, the HMonkGate video was Part 2 of TikTok Takedown, so this is Part 3. The TikTok Takedown playlist will be in the description if you haven't seen the others, but it's not like you have to watch the other ones to understand this one or something, but you should totally watch the other ones because I spent a lot of time on them. Yeah. So this first video is actually 2 videos, but it's not like the Divya Soup thing from part 1 where it's 2 separate videos that make separate points. It's more like I'm covering one video, but I have to show a different video purely for context, so let's just get into it. This whole thing started when the user JEBBIEHESHE, who I'll just call Jebbie, made the following video saying, "Me explaining to cis people how you can still misgender someone even if they use all pronouns." Which I agree with on a technicality, but not in the way they intended. If I identify as strictly in the middle, non-binary, and I use all pronouns, but someone calls me a woman or a girl, that would be misgendering. But if I am a non-binary person who uses all pronouns and you call me she, that's not misgendering. That's you literally following the pronouns I told you to use. We know this person is referring to the second case because of their next video, aka the video I'm actually going to be covering today. This video is a video reply to a comment that simply says, "I'm not woke enough for this."
Living in a Trump world right now, because why is it becoming trendy to say I'm not woke enough for this?
Because it's a joke meant to convey that you're taking a concept that is reasonably woke and pushing it too far where it doesn't actually make sense anymore. It's not meant to say that woke is inherently bad. All it says is that you can go too far with it, which, yeah, something sounding progressive or woke doesn't actually make it correct. It actually has to be correct based on its own merit, which is why people make these jokes poking fun at people who say things that sound woke without actually being correct. It's not this secret agenda to paint wokeness as bad, it's just a joke meant to say that not everything that is woke is good. It's expressing nuance.
This is crazy! This is crazy! Y'all, it's really not a difficult concept, and I feel like some of you are making it seem more difficult than it actually is so that you don't have to think. Like, all I'm asking you is to just switch around. I'm not asking you to say, "Oh, he, she, they likes apples." No, I'm not asking you to do that. Like, if you notice that you've been using one pronoun for a while, maybe switch it up. Or if you notice that everyone is calling somebody by one pronoun, maybe you take it on yourself to use a different pronoun on them to help balance it out.
That's not really how pronouns work, though. You can't sprinkle in little unwritten rules. You go by these pronouns. Those are the pronouns I will call you. If one of those pronouns being used makes you so uncomfortable, why the fuck is it in your bio in the first place? You do know that you don't have to use all pronouns, right? Like, That's something you should only do if you're comfortable with someone referring to you with any pronoun in any circumstance. If someone using a specific pronoun multiple times makes you that uncomfortable, that's not my fault. You're the one who put it in your fucking bio.
It's like, and nobody's gonna yell at you if you use one of the pronouns. Somebody just might feel a little upset if they're assigned female at birth and you're always using she, her pronouns on them.
Then, again, they shouldn't have she, her in their bio. I'm an assigned female at birth non-binary demigirl who uses all pronouns. If I get upset over you using the pronouns I literally asked you to use, then I've been replaced with a doppelganger, because in no right mind would I or any other reasonable individual get mad at someone for doing something I literally told them to do. Hell, you could even pull a, I use he, they, but only use she, her with close friends. If you're that sensitive with people using she, her pronouns on you in specific circumstances, maybe you should keep that with people you trust, or just don't use it at all.
Like, it's just, I'm not asking you to bend over backwards. People are asking like I'm, like, requiring you to chop off your arm and give it to me. Jesus Christ! It's really not difficult.
You got all of that over a singular comment saying, I'm not woke enough for this, and you're accusing them of being overdramatic. Come on, Jebbie, let's use our fucking thinking caps here.
I'm sorry that ChatGPT can't give you all the answers. I'm sorry that you have to listen to a human and, like, think about things a little bit.
Everyone who disagrees with me is a sheep who can't think for themselves. Nice deflection there. This is definitely the words of a well-adjusted and intelligent individual.
But I'm just a little baffled.
Baffled about what? That people were confused after you said this with no context or elaboration? Like, seriously, this whole fuck-ass video was you basically getting mad at a person for not understanding something you never actually explained. Wait, he's doing the Shark Hunter thing. All roads lead to Shark Hunter. Oh golly, a video on chicken scratching? Let's see what this is about. If you don't know what chicken scratching is, it's, you'll find out in a second, don't worry. This take can't be that bad now, can it?
Chicken scratching is not a style or a choice, it's a mistake. And if you disagree, you're misinformed.
Oh lord.
But I use chicken scratching because it looks good. And I genuinely like it. Then, it's not chicken scratching.
What? For those who don't know, chicken scratching in art is using a bunch of short repetitive lines instead of long confident lines. It's common for beginner artists who aren't super confident in their line abilities. But nowhere in my searching up about this topic have I seen any definition that says or implies that it can't be an intentional artistic choice. Yes, it's correlated and often caused by a lack of experience, but that doesn't always have to be the case. And furthermore, who said mistakes in art style have to be mutually exclusive? Because in the words of a very wise man,
we don't make mistakes, we have happy accidents.
The moment you start chicken scratching, out of your own volition and confidence, it stopped being chicken scratching.
Now, if there was a separate term for chicken scratching on purpose as an art style choice, I would totally understand this point, but to my knowledge, there isn't. Chicken scratching is an art technique just like any other, it's just more associated with beginner artists as opposed to more seasoned artists. That doesn't mean that every beginner artist uses chicken scratching, or that every seasoned artist will not use chicken scratching. It just means that this is a concept that is very often used by beginner artists out of habit, but something being common doesn't mean it's the only way a certain technique can be created.
Chicken scratching is a term used for an accidental mistake when the artist is not confident with their line.
Can we see a source for this? Because while I couldn't find a concrete official definition for chicken scratching in this context, most unofficial definitions that random people have came up with never said it had to be a mistake to be chicken scratching. If you've found a really good source that actually says that it has to be a mistake and there is no circumstance where someone could ever do it on purpose, I would like to see it, but you don't provide any evidence, especially for a term that seems to not have many official definitions. This is a huge issue. I can't just look it up and find it. You're gonna have to give me this definition because I'm not seeing it.
But this artist uses it, and it looks good. And it's literally always one of two things: crosshatch or a messy sketch.
Okay, but here's the issue. Art is subjective. I get your point about people mislabeling chicken scratching as crosshatching or messy sketches, which, yes, are different things, and you do have the right to point out that these things are different. But whether or not it looks good is irrelevant because art is inherently subjective and different art will look good to different people. Subjectivity is where creativity festers, and therefore the idea that a piece of art can be objectively attractive is ridiculous. I don't think that this particular individual specifically believes that art that they find attractive is the only art that is considered valid, though I do see a lot of people making similar arguments to the counter-argument that they responded to, which is that saying that a piece of art looks good to you is like some kind of telling of its validity, which isn't how art works. It's not valid because you think it looks good, it's valid because a human being made it.
Obviously, you can find beauty in the mistake, and that's fair. But let's not lie to ourselves and call it intentional chicken scratching.
Okay, then give me something else to call it, because chicken scratching is the term that makes the most sense, and you haven't given a single reason why anyone should refer to it in the way you specifically think people should. Nor have you actually given any sort of alternative term.
The whole point is that it's not intentional. And I don't want to hear art has no rules. Yes, but let's not mistake terms and share misinformation.
What misinformation? You are the one adding extra rules onto terms that don't make any fucking sense. Unless you can give a source for any of this, my only real response is, why should I listen to you? NEKOPUPII here has a really hot take on politics. Let's see what it is.
Are you left or right wing? Well, think about it like this. If I put you on a plane with one wing, are you gonna fly in it? Absolutely not.
Oh god, it's another enlightened centrist.
I got the packing peanuts! Attack!
Oh god, it's you again.
So stop focusing on choosing a side and focus on human rights.
I understand what you're saying, but when one side is pro-human rights and the other is anti-human rights, you kind of do have to choose a side. This centrist shit doesn't work because these sides aren't equal extremes, and there's one side that is clearly more correct than the other. There will always be nuance in politics, nuance among both the left and the right. But there is clearly one way you should be leaning, the side that actually cares about human rights. This is just a false compromise fallacy. It doesn't actually serve any kind of purpose other than looking more correct because you're trying to be the bigger person by taking the middle ground, but that assumes that the middle ground is always going to be the correct answer, which it isn't. Now, if you explained your reasons as to why you believe this would be a different story, but you don't. The most you give is this vague notion that the left and the right have issues, which, yeah, every group has issues. This isn't a fucking argument.
And one thing I see both sides guilty of is everyone blaming only Trump for everything. While yes, he is guilty of a lot of things and should be gone, there are 2 other branches of the government we need to worry about.
You mean those 2 other branches of government that are majority populated by Republicans? Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying the government would be all sunshine and rainbows if only Democrats were in power. Politicians suck and the government sucks, no matter who's in power. But it's pretty obvious that it sucks a lot more when Republicans are in power. I'm no political expert, and I'm sure many people could explain this much better and in much more detail than I can. But again, this idea of centrism doesn't work because even if both sides have problems, being dead center in the middle of people who want human rights for black people, LGBT people, women and immigrants, and people who want to take away those human rights from these groups is fucking ridiculous. You're either for human rights or you aren't. There's no, you need 2 wings to fly a plane bullshit. Gay people got rights by throwing bricks at cops, not by twiddling their thumbs and talking about how they're an enlightened centrist who are neutral about human rights. Like, come the fuck on.
Like yes, hold him accountable for his actions, but also make them take accountability of their actions.
Yeah, and by criticizing the Republican Party, they are also criticizing a lot of the people in those branches of government because, again, the majority of people in power right now are Republican. The reason why Trump in particular gets singled out so much is because he's, you know, supposed to be the face of our country or something. He's also especially fucking stupid compared to a lot of other political figures.
Ultimately, the government of Puerto Rico will have to work with us to determine how this massive rebuilding effort will end up being one of the biggest ever will be funded and organized.
The last thing I want to address is the fact that this person's caption says, "I am woke enough for this." But here's the issue. Centrism isn't woke, it's just the safe option that you go to so you aren't criticized by either side. So you can stay neutral on these topics so nobody can actually criticize your opinion because you don't have an opinion. Being neutral on human rights and fascism and all that shit isn't woke, and saying that the people who are pro-fascism and anti-human rights are just as important as the people who are pro-human rights and anti-fascism is fucking insane. Do you understand how fucking insane you sound? Again, I'm not saying that you have to be either a super dedicated liberal or a super dedicated Republican. You just can't be dead center in the middle and then act like that's the super woke, super morally superior option when you're essentially just saying you're neutral on a ton of very important topics that any normal fucking person with a brain wouldn't be neutral about. I don't think this person had any kind of bad intent while making this video. I just think that their takes on politics are fucking stupid, and even me, someone who isn't very well versed in politics, can understand that. It's pretty obvious that if you are pro-human rights, that's not neutral. That's clearly left-leaning. If you're neutral, you aren't for human rights. You're neutral on human rights. If you are for human rights, you aren't neutral. This video is just fucking wild, and I think I'm just gonna have to show it to you to really get across the interesting nature of this video.
Can I talk to Darky Player? No.
Can I talk to Charles?
No.
Can I talk to Natsuki?
No. Can I talk to any other older?
So I've seen a lot of these people who claim to be systems, and one thing I must say is that, oh my god, you do not have multiple personality disorder.
Right off the bat, it's obvious that this person has no fucking clue what they're talking about, using an outdated term for DID that literally nobody uses anymore.
You all are obviously begging for attention, and don't have any real diagnosis.
How do you know that? Can we see maybe some kind of statistic that shows the majority of DID cases are self-diagnosed? No? Of course.
And just want to be rude or mean, and use your disorder as an excuse.
What does this have to do with the video you're covering? This is a huge issue in this video. They barely address the actual video and instead talk about shit that is entirely unrelated.
which is completely ridiculous, especially how a lot of you guys seem to have alters, which are fictional characters.
Which is a real thing, by the way. It's called fictional introjects. It happens when the brain creates a personality based on a fictional character instead of just creating its own personality. It's not actually that far-fetched. If the brain can create alternative personalities from trauma, it's not an insane concept that they'd also create ones based on fictional characters.
Speaking from my own personal experience with someone like this, they claim that they had an alter, which was a 4,000-year-old vampire. Furthermore, this guy also thought male lesbians are okay, which says a lot.
Oh, cool, okay. Random ad hominem thrown in the middle of the video for no fucking reason. Because someone's fucking opinions on queer discourse means you get to discredit their mental illness. Yup, that's how that works.
But the main reason why I say people like this use their quote, disorder to be rude and terrible to people, is because 99% of the time these people blame saying something terrible on their alters, which is just fucking scummy. Referring back to the experience I had with one of these people, they started digging into me, making fun of the fact that I was homeless and leaking. Very personal things that I said to them.
So you have evidence, but you're just choosing not to show it for whatever reason? Cool. Again, this makes you look really credible.
But obviously, I'm not going to get into that since that's only one person, and not everybody.
Then why are you using it to apply to all systems? You're arguing that systems, or at least most systems, use their alters as an excuse to be rude to people, and your proof is one singular experience you had. Not related at all to the original video, by the way. This video sucks at being a response commentary.
But my main point is you're not the narrator from Fight Club. You're just 15 looking for attention, same goes for fiction kids and people in that general circle. You guys are just a bunch of attention seekers who want to act out and use your disorder as an excuse.
So, yeah, that's the entirety of this video. What the fuck? Like, obviously this video is offensive to systems, but that's not why I'm saying what the fuck. I'm saying what the fuck because the fact that somebody who claims to be a commentator created this video and thought it was good and then posted it? Like, are you fucking lobotomized? This is another video about twisting definitions until they are not actually the actual definition of a certain word. We saw it with chicken scratching, now we're about to see it with homophobia. Let's just start this.
You are not homophobic just because you don't support LGBT. This isn't a hot take. This is common knowledge. Just because someone isn't in a lie doesn't mean they're homophobic. Now listen and don't doze off and scroll once you see the paragraph. The definition of being homophobic is purposely pushing hatred onto the LGBTQ community.
No, it isn't. The definition of homophobia is actually a dislike or prejudice against gay people. Once you know the actual definition of the word they're talking about, the rest of this video starts to crumble real fast.
So let me paint 3 scenarios. I do not support this, but I love and respect you as a human anyway. I don't think any less of you.
That first example does in fact show homophobia by the actual definition, not the one you randomly pulled out of your ass. If you don't support something, you dislike it. Boom, homophobia.
I do not support this. I'd rather we not continue this friendship for my own comfort and yours, but I wish you the best and I hope you find someone who can make you happy. That was not fucking homophobic.
Yes, it was. If you have to stop being someone's friend because they're gay, you're homophobic. You have a dislike and prejudice of gay people that makes you homophobic. Imagine using this fuck-ass logic for black people. You find out your online friend is actually black and you say, I can't continue this friendship for my comfort, but I hope you can find someone who can make you happy. Oh, fuck off.
Ooh, gross, go die, turn to whatever religion. I hate you, gross, go away.
Oh my fucking god, are we actually fucking serious? Nobody over the age of 10 is going to act that way, homophobic or not. You're making up this caricature of homophobes in your head so you don't have to face the actual reality of what homophobia is. Homophobia isn't just someone going ew and acting like you have cooties. It often pushes the idea that gay people are inherently dirty and immoral in more subtle ways, often condescending ways, like shown in your first two examples. Just because you say you aren't homophobic doesn't mean you actually aren't. If your words say, I'm not homophobic, but your actions are saying gay people are immoral, that's still homophobia. If someone feels the need to tell their gay friend that they don't support gay people, that's already a sign that homophobia has seeped so far into their tiny, smooth brain that they'll think any anti-gay belief is okay if you say it nicely. And keep in mind, there is a spectrum of homophobia. You can be mildly homophobic and not actually wish harm on anyone, yet you do have some unintentional biases against gay people that you don't really realize, and that does affect your actions and the way you interact with the world. And then there are people who are extremists who would literally kill a gay person if given the opportunity. These are two very different kinds of people who should be treated differently, but it is still all homophobia, just based on the most basic definition, and that should be acknowledged. These people should be handled differently, but this is all homophobia. And if we say that people who are more mild on the spectrum aren't homophobic just because they aren't actively malicious, that doesn't force them to check their biases and realize that what they believe is wrong. It is people who are most mild on the spectrum who will be more open to changing their point of view, so that is why we need to hold these people accountable and give them pushback and explain why their actions are homophobic. So if we give them a pass because they aren't actively malicious, that is going to encourage more of these people who are mildly homophobic.
I'm begging y'all, learn definitions.
And that's coming from you. Here's another shitty video about homophobia.
Hot take, I think that we shouldn't force LGBT on homophobic people. Okay, guys, wait, before you cancel me, just hear me out first. If forcing things on other people is bad, then why are some people forcing LGBT on homophobic people?
What? Okay, first of all, what does forcing LGBT on someone even mean? Like, forcing someone to observe gay people existing? Because that's called growing a pair and learning to tolerate people different than you. Do you mean, like, forcing someone to, like, be gay? I mean, yeah, that's kind of called sexual harassment and assault. I don't think anyone is pro-sexually assaulting homophobes.
I completely agree homophobic people are bad, but like, think of it as forcing religion on non-religious people. Pretty bad, right? Not reasonable. So why are some people forcing LGBT on others?
Because those are entirely different situations. Being non-religious is not inherently wrong. It is not a belief that should inherently be changed. Being homophobic is. That is a belief that is not only wrong, but should be changed. Do I really have to say this? That homophobia is worse than somebody being atheist? Either you have really bad opinions on homophobia or really bad opinions on atheism. Because holy shit, is that a comparison.
Okay, maybe homophobic is a bit of a stretch. Let me try wording this again. Stop forcing LGBT on people who aren't part of the LGBT.
Okay, cool. Changing up the thesis when we're 3/4 into the video. Awesome. So hashtag Sugoi. Anyway, what the fuck are you on about? Straight people should be forced to observe LGBT people existing because, you know, the only other alternative is to literally kick gay people out of public spaces. Unless, again, you're giving the extremely hot, steamy take of don't sexually harass people. And considering slime ranters have a habit of passing off the most no-shit takes as hot takes, it actually wouldn't surprise me that much if they genuinely was just making a video that said, don't sexually assault people for being straight. Like, I genuinely would not be very surprised.
Let them be, and if they are homophobic, just ignore them.
I don't even have to argue against this point because someone in the comment section did it for me. Do you think we gained our rights by ignoring homophobic ideology and people? They responded with, no, which to that I have to say, then shut the fuck up. So while I was looking for this comment that I ended up not being able to find again, it probably got deleted or hidden or something like that, I found this other comment which actually has them clarifying what they mean by forcing. You could have done that in the actual fucking video, but whatever. They do in fact clarify that they did mean forcing people to be part of the LGBT community, which the reply to this message really says all that I could ever say. What is it with slime ranters having such shitty opinions on LGBT discourse?
Hot take, but I feel like the LGBTQ+ community sometimes goes too far with flags and sexualities, and it makes it hard to be taken seriously. I know this sounds weird, but I want to explain my opinion and why I think this. First of all, I think many people only pick a sexuality to be part of a community or a minority. Tell me why I see so many people who identify as aro-ace, yet dating someone because they feel little to no attraction.
Because that's what asexual and aromantic mean. That is literally the definition of those two words. Feeling little to no sexual or romantic attraction. Like, I genuinely don't understand what's not clicking. Like, imagine saying this about any other sexuality. Why do you call yourself gay because you are a man who's attracted to other men? Because that's the definition of the fucking word, you dumbass.
Why not just say you have a hard time developing romantic feelings?
Because that's what aromantic fucking means.
11-year-olds saying they are asexual when they have not even hit puberty yet? I fear that's normal? I would actually be concerned if you wanted to have sex at that age.
This point isn't the worst. I get what you're saying, but I think at that point you should just step back and let them figure that out themselves. It isn't your job to be the sexuality police, and denying some random kid's sexuality just because you think that they're too young to identify that way is just gonna make them feel defensive. It doesn't matter. Most LGBT people have labels they grow out of. It isn't new. My brother is a gay trans male, and he used to identify as a cis female lesbian, then omnisexual non-binary, then omnisexual gender fluid, and now he's a gay trans male. It doesn't matter at the end of the day, so instead of making these think pieces about how these unspecified asexual children are doing it for attention, you should just let them experiment with their identity and move on. Half the time it'll just be a phase, and the other half of the time they are actually asexual. It's not your business to tell 11-year-olds how they should identify. I understand and partially agree with what you're saying, but I just think at the end of the day it's a non-issue and it's not something anybody should be worrying about nor making stupid slime rants about.
It feels like people try too hard to be part of a minority, whether it is to feel included in a community or just to feel special. There are way too many unnecessary sexualities. I understand that people want to express themselves, but it gets to a point.
I love the vague notion people express of, it gets to a point, okay? What is that point? Can you explain in detail where that point begins and ends? Because if you can't, then you're just saying shit to say shit and it doesn't actually mean anything.
Also, let us not forget about mental illnesses being treated like sexualities and given their own flags. I am specifically talking about hypersexuality. Like, hello? What are we doing?
I actually do agree with this point. I believe that people who turn mental illnesses, neurodivergencies, fetishes, paraphilias into sexuality labels or just general LGBT labels are very strange, and I think that it doesn't actually make any fucking sense. Of course, there's the obvious of maps and zoosexuals and necrosexuals, but I feel like almost everyone has gone on and on and on about how not valid those identities are. I'm more talking about things like objectum or fictosexual. Keep in mind, you are allowed to be sexually attracted to objects, and you are allowed to be proud of that fact. You're allowed to be sexually attracted to exclusively fictional characters, and you are allowed to be proud of that. But it's not a sexuality, it is a fetish. It's fine that you have that fetish, and I think that, there are lots of fetish communities that you can, find yourself comfortable in, and I think that's valid, given you are over the age of 18. Don't join fetish communities if you're under the age of 18. But you get my point. It's not queer. I mean, it's strange, but it's not LGBT. With that said, I don't actually believe that the specific example that he uses here actually supports his thesis. Because having a mental illness makes you already a minority. It already makes you marginalized. It kind of falls under the disabled category. So, if these people are only doing it so they can be a part of a minority group, they're already in a minority group. Why would they switch from one minority group to another? They're already in a minority group. The example I used of objectum and fictosexual actually makes a lot more sense and would support your thesis more, because having a fetish, while being very much not normal, isn't exactly a minority group. It's not a oppressed group of people. If I can support your thesis better than you can support your thesis, I think that says a lot about the quality of your arguments. Though, if you want my personal opinion, I don't believe it's about these people wanting to be seen as special. I personally believe that it is more about these people being ashamed about the idea of having a fetish or kink, and instead of actually unpacking that, they decide to just say, well, I'm just queer. It's not a fetish, it's just gay.
It feels like the whole LGBTQ+ community is getting set back decades.
This point doesn't actually make any sense. If people feel comfortable enough to just identify with any label for the sake of being quirky or whatever you were talking about in the beginning, does that not show clear progress in queer rights? I mean, not too long ago, being gay was seen by the majority of people as culturally forbidden. I'd rather be in a world where anyone can identify however they want without question, given it isn't harmful to anyone else, than a world where being gay is gatekept to small hidden communities because of severe bigotry.
Do not get me wrong, I am bisexual myself. I agree that some labels can be helpful for certain people, but they can also be very confusing. How am I supposed to take someone seriously when they have more than 15 labels that I cannot even comprehend?
Oh, I know. Stop focusing on their labels and focus on them as a person. People are more than their labels. You don't have to understand and agree with every single label a person uses to coexist with them like a normal person.
I do not understand this obsession with labels and constant categorization. If this makes you happy, then go ahead, but please do not yell at other people for not understanding all these blurry and unnecessary labels.
Every label is unnecessary. We don't have to label anything. You don't have to be a bisexual. You could just be a person who dates men and women. But you choose to identify that way because that's how you prefer to identify.
Most people are definitely influenced by social media. It honestly makes me sad that we feel such a strong need to fit into a box.
Who said that these people feel the need to put themselves in a box? What if they just do it because they want to? You're assuming a lot about these people for no reason. Hell, I could argue that you deciding to identify as bisexual means that you are being forced by society to put yourself into some kind of box, when no, I actually think you just do it because that's how you prefer to identify. It's really not that deep.
Why do we feel the need to label everything when these are completely normal feelings?
Because labeling something means it's automatically not normal. That's how language works. Yup.
Like, I get it, you want to be seen as lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, etc.
You're talking about people going too far in the LGBT community with terms and labels or whatever, and your examples are gay, lesbian, transgender, and bisexual? we might as well just call the community the plus community, considering you've knocked out all the fucking letters. What was the point of bringing up these very specific and very fundamental labels in the community if they don't actually match any of your arguments, because you've been talking about asexual people and hypersexual people? Nowhere have you mentioned any specific lesbian label, gay label, transgender label, bisexual label. Like, if you brought up bi lesbians, for example, and then proceeded to say, I understand you want to be seen as lesbian and bisexual, that would make sense, because it's actually correlating to a specific point you brought up earlier in the video. But since you're just throwing this in for no reason when it doesn't actually match any of your examples, it just looks like you're trying to discredit these terms as terms and use these as examples of terms that have gone too far in the community, which again, wouldn't make sense because they are the community. They are literally the most fundamental terms within the community. What's next? Are you gonna say that ACAB goes too far because it believes all cops are bastards? Are you gonna say that Antifa is going too far because it's anti-fascist? You see the issue with this logic, right? You're saying that something is fine in concept but is going too far in execution when the entire fucking concept revolves around the thing you're complaining about.
But sometimes I think it gets too far.
This video wasn't the worst, but it definitely could have been better with some better examples and much better wording. The point about ace arrows should have been entirely scrapped. It was a shit point from start to finish. Same with your weird comment about gays, lesbians, bisexuals, and transgenders, but the rest of your argument could have worked, maybe, if, again, your arguments were better polished and used slightly better examples. The best critique I would have, personally, just off the top of my head, would probably be to replace the point about mental illness, specifically hypersexuality, to kink and paraphilia such as objectum and fictosexual, because that supports your point a lot better, considering, again, as I previously discussed, you argued that these people just want to be part of a minority group, and that doesn't make sense if you're referring to a group that is already marginalized, that being the mentally ill community. But if you're referring to just people with fetishes, that is not a minority group and therefore would make a lot more sense and be much better at supporting your actual thesis and argument. And while I wouldn't personally agree with your line of reasoning, I would understand it and see it as something that a perfectly reasonable person could believe, and that it could be one of many possibilities of why these people choose to identify this way, and I would see it as a perfectly valid argument. It's a valid way to view it, even if I personally disagree, and I personally have my own theory as to why these people act this way. While the original argument is much more flawed for reasons I explained earlier. But I think at the end of the day, making a video where you are trying to prove that queer people are actually secretly faking for attention or to be quirky or special is generally kind of strange. It's kind of similar to the video I talked about in part 1, where this person was trying to argue that a large amount of people are faking DID because of this or that reason, and it's actually similar to the DID related video I covered in this video, where it is trying to make claims that are basically impossible to prove without some pretty heavy statistics, with no actual statistics, no actual studies. It's just kind of assumed based off of vague examples that could very well be isolated incidents. So, long story short, I don't believe in the social contagion argument, and I think that there are better ways to argue the social contagion argument, but this person did not do a great job of arguing that. They could have done a worse job, but they also could have done a much better job. And even if this concept had truth to it, okay, what do we do about it? How do we figure out who is and isn't a faker? There's no way to figure that out, because we're talking about people's personal relationship to their identity, whether that be their sexual identity or their gender identity. We can't figure that out. There was literally no way for us to figure that out. And if it's not really even harming anyone and there's no actual way to figure out who is and isn't doing this, what the fuck is even the point? Why are we even having this discussion? Just let people do what they want, identify how they want, and don't be a fucking cop and try and figure out who's a real gay and a fake gay, because at this point it doesn't fucking matter. Similar to part 1 of TikTok Takedown, we have another Christian clutching their pearls about Has-Been Hotel.
Hot take, but Has-Been Hotel sexualizing Christianity and makes our belief out to be much worse than it truly is. Anyone who fails to admit that is flat out inconsiderate and unwilling to listen to how people feel.
Just because you feel offended about something doesn't actually make it wrong or immoral. So yeah, I'll happily ignore how Christians feel about Has-Been Hotel if they can't give me a good reason about why it's objectively harmful. If you feel offended by this show, don't watch it.
They antagonize and make heaven out to be this place that's so closed-minded to how others feel.
Yeah, it's clearly supposed to be a representation of how holier-than-thou Christians treat others. It's not literally trying to say that the real-life heaven that totally definitely exists is this evil, horrible place. It's art. It's an artistic representation of a fictional setting. I'm sorry you don't like the fact that Has-Been Hotel doesn't lick the boots of shitty Christians. Get over it and watch VeggieTales or something.
Before anyone says, it's not based off Christianity, many religious beliefs include heaven and hell. There are religious figures shown throughout the show, such as Adam, St. Peter, Lucifer, the 7 deadly sins, and even God himself, who are all known for Christian beliefs. But people often don't realize this because of how indubitably mischaracterized they are.
Again, you're mad that an artistic representation portrays its characters differently than in the actual mythology, as if the concept of changing characters for different adaptations to fit the themes and plot is totally unheard of or something. Has-Been Hotel is not for a Christian audience. You want an accurate portrayal of Bible characters? Go read the Bible.
It becomes hard to recognize at first glance.
I don't know, I'm pretty sure its themes of Christianity are pretty on the nose. I think it's a skill issue that it was hard for you to notice.
The way Adam talks about his dick all the time, when Adam and Eve's personality in the Bible had been seen as charismatic, curious, faithful to God, and easily influenced, leading to them taking a bite out of the apple.
You're telling me that Adam from the Bible didn't call himself the Dick Master? No fucking way. And people wonder why I don't like religion. This is what the Bible does to the human brain. Like, seriously, you're mad that a fucking adult cartoon created to mock and criticize religion isn't completely accurate to the Bible. It's a comedy cartoon. There are so many accurate recreations of Christian stories created to lick the boots of Christianity, and you get upsetty spaghetti about a single show created to criticize it. You're barging into spaces not meant for you, and are acting surprised when those spaces are, in fact, not catered to your personal view of Christianity. Yes, Has-Been Hotel is inspired by Christianity. That doesn't mean it's a Christian show. It's satire.
Nowhere did the Bible ever mention anything sexual with Adam and Eve.
Except the part where they had sex to create children.
If you take the fact they reproduced and created mankind as Adam and Eve being sex freaks, there is something seriously wrong with you.
I don't think that has anything to do with it, actually. I'm pretty sure it's more of the fact that lust is considered a sin, and therefore it is ironic for an angel to be engaging in lust. But I guess media literacy is optional now.
I understand that sometimes you need to change things to make things more interesting for your plot, but when it comes to making religious figures out to be rude and selfish sex freaks or twinkified little men, it turns from respectful changes to flat-out disrespect and sexualization.
Give me one reason why your fairy tale book deserves any amount of respect. I respect Christians as people if they have not harmed anyone, but I sure as hell don't respect a book of fairy tales trying to pass itself off as real history. In fact, I think there should be more media that mocks Christianity because Christianity is a fucking stupid concept.
Not to mention, the way they make angels out to be horrible people who do not care for others blatantly disrespects and disregards all beliefs among Christianity and its figures.
Oh yes, because historically Christians are known for being such lovely and kind people who would never have any sort of disregard for others. It's not like the genocide shown in the show by the angels against the demons could be some kind of metaphor for Christians and their historical hypocrisy when it comes to dealing with groups of people they see as uncivilized or ungodly. No, that would actually force Christians to reflect on their views in history, and that's bad. I'd rather Hazbin Hotel blindly kiss the ass of my religion so I don't have to think that hard about the people my religion have hurt and killed in the past.
I just wish people would understand the harm shows like this do to our already fragile reputation.
Fragile reputation? Christianity is the most popular religion on this planet. Get a grip. I love this wording, by the way. Yeah, obviously this is all about reputation to you, not about whether or not Christianity is actually worthy of critique. You just care about the fact that it makes your humble little religion with 2 billion followers look kinda stupid. Maybe it's making it look stupid because it is stupid. Have you ever thought of that before immediately worrying about your reputation? This is gonna be a huge hot take, but I don't believe that I have to respect your religion. I'll respect you as a person if you have not maliciously harmed anyone, but I do not respect Christianity. I do not respect Islam. I do not respect Judaism. I don't respect the religion. I respect Jewish people. I respect Muslim people. I respect Christian people, given those individuals have not harmed anyone. Obviously, it depends on the person, but just the group itself, yeah, I respect them because they're human beings. They're human beings who deserve rights, they deserve respect, and they deserve to be able to practice their religions. But I don't respect the books. I don't respect the religions. I think the religions are stupid, and I do not believe they are above criticism despite what a lot of people may say. So when you and other Christians claim that Hazbin Hotel is disrespecting Christianity, that doesn't mean anything to me. You're just stating a fact. Yeah, it is. So what?
Due to so many rude Christians ruining it.
I would have personally mentioned Manifest Destiny or the Salem witch trials, but yeah, I guess Christians who are kind of rude are a problem too. Oh yeah, I forgot that Christians hate actually acknowledging their history, so they like to act like the worst thing Christians have ever done is be kind of rude to non-religious people. Anyway, my final thoughts are Darwinism, evolution, Big Bang Theory, problem of evil. Would you guys believe me if I told you I was not atheist? I'm actually agnostic. So, rad queer people exist.
9/11 was bad.
I agree with that.
Yeah, so if you don't know what rad queers are, they're basically people who believe every LGBT identity is valid. Now, that sounds like a good thing until you realize they openly include MAPs, zoosexuals, necrosexuals, transracial people, trans-age people, because I guess that's a thing now, and trans-abled people, which I guess is also a thing now. I found a couple videos on this topic that I'm going to cover to end off this video, because what better to argue against their beliefs than to, you know, actually respond to the videos they make on the topic. Let's just begin this nightmare.
I need people to understand transabled is more than just allistic people identifying as autistic, or singlets saying they are plural.
Putting allistics and singlets in quotes is so fucking funny. Yes, they are allistic, objectively. Yes, they are singlets, objectively. You can't will autism or DID into existence. You either have autism from birth or you don't. You either form DID through trauma or you don't. You can't identify as autistic or a DID system if you aren't one, because disabilities aren't a social construct. Being autistic is a neurodivergency, for fuck's sake. You can't diverge your own neurons.
For those who don't know, transabled means identifying with a different ability, including disabilities. If you are disabled and identify as non-disabled, you're transabled. If you are disabled and wish your symptoms were more or less severe, you're transabled.
No, you aren't. That's just not how that works. If I get chronic back pain and wish my back pain would go away, that's not being transabled, that's having a normal response to pain. If we're comparing this bullshit concept to being transgender, that's like saying you're a trans man if you, as a woman, wish you had the social privileges a man has.
If you wish you had another disability, you're transabled. If you wish you had less disabilities than you currently got, you're transabled.
I feel like this strange idea that it's apparently some kind of abnormal special thing to not like having a disability comes from this idea that disabilities are these cute, fun, quirky things that everyone wants to have because it's just so cute and quirky that the transabled community likes to push. Like, transabled at this point just sounds like a fun, quirky term for Munchausen's. And I don't want to hear anyone say, well, we know that disabilities cause a lot of struggles that affect your day-to-day life. Clearly you don't, because you want to identify with having these disabilities without actually having them. You want the social identity of having a disability without actually going through the struggles that that disability entails. And I've gone through a lot of these rad queer TikToks, not just the ones I'm showing you today, and there are genuinely people who feel the need to disable themselves because of the quote-unquote dysphoria they get from not being disabled. And if you genuinely are considering that, get help. That is not normal. That is its own mental illness. That is not being transabled, and that is not something that anyone should be encouraging. That is self-harm.
If you wish for more disabilities, you're transabled.
And fucking insane. I know this one only had like 3 interjections, but it was pretty short, so there wasn't too much to say, but I did feel the need to talk about this idea of transabled because Jesus fuck. Our last video for today is another rad queer video. So you know it's gonna be good.
Listening to people talk about rad queer on this app really fries my brain. Like, no, trans harmed isn't because someone wants attention, it's because they feel like they should be harmed, were harmed, but felt invalid, etc.
Yup, you heard them right. Trans S-harmed, or trans self-harmed. We're transitioning into verbs now? How do you transition into doing something you aren't doing? Now, I'm not saying anyone should harm themselves, but you do know you can just do that, right? Don't, but that's an action you can physically engage in at any time. You shouldn't, but you get my point, right? Wanna know what it's called when you want to self-harm but don't? Because it's not trans self-harm, it's self-harm ideation. What's next? Is suicidal thoughts trans suicide? Be so fucking for real.
It baffles me how a whole social media app can be so stupid. I don't even bother trying to educate people anymore because they're dead set on the fact rad queers are bad people when we're not.
God forbid people assume the community that is trying to make disabilities into cute, quirky labels you can choose to identify with simply because you feel like it, and not genuine real-life issues that people genuinely struggle and even die from in some cases on a daily basis, are bad people. God fucking forbid. How could they?
TikTok really likes the idea of accepting all identities until it's something weird they can't wrap their minds around.
It's not weird, it just ignores the reality of mental illness. Gender and sexuality labels are a social construct. Whether or not you cut yourself isn't. Either you do or you don't. You are making serious claims about mental illness and mental health issues with no source to support your bullshit ideas.
Someone may want to be trans race because they have an interest in culture, enjoy the lifestyle, and feel comfortable like that. Not because they're fetishizing cultures.
That's not what race is, though. Race and ethnicity, and how we define them, are a complex mix of genetics, ancestry, geography, and culture. How we define race is, to some extent, a social construct. But that doesn't mean anyone can just claim they're any race for no reason. If someone, for example, is genetically Indian but was raised in Japan, they are culturally and nationally Japanese. Them claiming the Japanese label would make more sense because that culture is all they've really known. Though of course they aren't racially Japanese. Race is genetic, though the way we categorize race is a social construct. Are Russians white or are they Asian? They're technically in Asia, but they, for all extensive purposes, are white. They don't have the genetic features we would normally associate with someone who is Asian. But what actually decides which features are Asian and which are not? It's extremely subjective. But nowhere, in any possible universe, will a white American anime fan ever be considered Japanese. That's not how racial categories work. If a white person was born in and grew up in Japan, then they're ethnically and nationally Japanese. But racially, they are still white. You are not racially Japanese because you watch anime and eat sushi. Race and ethnicity are both extremely complex topics that have a lot of different factors into why we categorize them the way we do. That doesn't mean anyone can claim to be any race just because they feel like it.
The trans-eyed/radqueer community is a community made for people to put their identities into words.
Don't worry, I can put your identities into words for you. Fucking bullshit.
It's not fair. It's not fair. It's not fair.
It's actually pretty funny how I kind of went down this rabbit hole, and it's actually pretty similar to how I went down the subliminal rabbit hole, which is kind of ironic considering these two communities seem to have some links. I never actually talked about this in my subliminal video, but transracial people love subliminals. They make lots of subliminals trying to turn themselves Japanese. It's always Japanese. I wonder why. Anyway, back to my story. I've been posting more on Tumblr recently. You should actually totally go follow my Tumblr. It's actually linked in my straw page, so check that out. But I've been posting on Tumblr, and a lot of people who know a lot about the radqueer community are probably cringing right now, considering that Tumblr is apparently a radqueer cesspool, from what I've heard personally. I'm not an expert in this community, but just based on what I've heard, it seems like Tumblr loves their radqueers. And there was this person who I will be keeping entirely anonymous because I do not want anyone going to their posts and harassing them at all. I literally put it in every single description of my commentaries. Don't fucking harass people. But this person was adding me in a lot of posts and talking about how they were my fan and all that fun stuff, but they also had lots of radqueer tags under their posts. that kind of got me interested, like, what is that? I've, like, heard that before a few times, but I don't really know what it means. But what really made me do more research on the topic was when I got not one, but 2 straw page gimmicks from somebody who I am 99% sure is the same person from Tumblr. Like, the timeline lined up way too perfectly. I am pretty sure it's them. If it's not, holy coincidence. And based on their wording, I was pretty sure this person was going to continuously bother me about it unless I actually responded. So I just decided to, so I did my research and I realized this community kinda sucks ass. So I talked about that on the following community post, and I kinda wanted to talk about it in a video, so I decided to look for some rad queer related videos, and I found 2 of them that I felt like I could cover, and here we are. But yeah, that's basically it. This was TikTok Takedown Part 3. I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.